Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and in this tutorial I'm really excited to share with you this new Lumigurumi octopus who is Pearl from the movie Finding Nemo. So this was designed by the very creative Janet Gautney, and she has generously allowed me to create the tutorial so everyone else can make her too. To make your pearl, you're going to need a hook of some sort, so I have the Rainbow Loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have on hand. You're going to need something for the stuffing, so I'm using polyfill. I will be using a twist tie to help me get my magic ring started, so that's optional, but I do find it very helpful. You'll need some clips or some stitch markers. And then for my eyes, I'm using these 6mm black safety eyes. So you can also use beads, bands, buttons, wiggle eyes, so really there's a lot of different options. And then as far as my band counts, I used about 665 pink and 2 black. We're going to begin by making a magic ring of 3, so for that I have my 4 rubber bands. So if you are using the twist tie, you just want to put it right next to your hook. And then you'll take your first band and you're going to triple this. So it just goes on, twist, back on, twist, and back on. So you'll have 3 loops. You just pull this up, bend it in half, and that's just going to help you hold those 3 loops together and give you something to grab onto. So if you didn't have the twist tie, you would just use your fingers to pinch those 3 loops. And then we have 3 bands we're going to pull through. So here's the first one, get it back on your hook, pull one through the other, and from front to back go through all 3 loops. You're going to take your second band, pull through, back on your hook. This time you'll have 3 loops, one pulls through the other 2. And then one more time here, pull through your third band, and then you can remove your twist tie and take your clip or stitch marker and place it on the band that's on your hook. So it is a really small magic ring, and you can see how the bands are pretty much down to 1/2. So just try your best and straighten these out. Try and get them evenly spaced around that circle. And then this is a magic ring of 3, so you should have 3 stitches. And a stitch is this little sideways V on the outer edge of your magic ring. So that's 1, 2, and the third one is the one that your clip is on. In row 2, you're going to need 6 bands, and we're doing an increase in every stitch. So you're going to go under your first stitch, and it is going to be kind of a far stretch. So just stretch around here, go under both loops from front to back. We're doing an increase in every one, so here's our first, and then we're going back through that same stitch for a second. So that's what's known as an increase. Move over to the next stitch. This clip is kind of in the way there. Again, we're doing 2 single crochets. So here's 1, back under for my second. And then the third stitch is where this clip is. Let me just take that off. Go under both loops. And we're doing our last increase. Just going to add my clip back on. And what I would suggest is to take your stitches and spread them apart, just so you can see what you're doing. And if you flip around to the other side where you have your 3, now you have a little bit easier of a time to just kind of even those out and make sure that they're evenly spaced. You'll need 6 bands for row 3, and we're doing 1 single crochet into each stitch. So as I said, I would recommend spreading these out so you can see your stitches a little bit better. I'm going to go under our first one. And again, we're doing 1 in each. So you're constantly moving to the next stitch. And then your last stitch is going to be where your clip is for number 6. In row 4 you'll need 9 bands, so we're doing an increase in every other stitch. So it's a 1 2 1 2 repeating pattern. Again, I would recommend kind of opening up your stitches just so you can see what you're doing. So we're starting with a single, and then in the second stitch we have an increase. And then we're just going to repeat that. So single, increase, single, and then where your clip is, you're going to do an increase. So this completes the first ear. So what you're going to do is to make a second ear, and I'm not going to film this, but I will add the time to go back to if you feel like you need to follow along with the steps once again. And this is actually the same pattern that we're going to use for the first 4 rows of all 8 of the tentacles. So why don't you go ahead and make 10 of these, and then when you're done that, I will show you how to finish the 8 tentacles. In rows 5 through 7 of the tentacles, you're going to just do 1 single crochet into each stitch. So you're going to need 9 bands for each row, and I'll do the first row with you, and I'll just go ahead and let you do the other 2 rows on your own. So once again, if you need to, you can just open up these stitches, and it's pretty easy. We're just doing 1 in each. So as I said, you're going to do 8 tentacles, so you're going to have to do this to the other 7 that you've made so far. So I think it's nice that a lot of the pieces have the same kind of stitch pattern because it's easier to remember, and you can just go ahead and crank them out pretty quickly. And here's the last one. Move that clip. And then you can pause and complete rows 6 and 7 on your own. We're starting with a magic ring of 8. So for that I have 9 bands. So once again I'm going to use my twist tie, and I'm going to triple my first band. So just twist and loop it back on until you have your 3 loops. And then that leaves 8 bands that we're going to pull through one at a time. So our other magic rings were actually on the small side with just 3, and this one's on the large side with 8. So here's number 6. It is going to get kind of full, but that's quite okay, especially since I have this twist tie in. Let me just take that out and pull through number 8. Add the clip, and then I'm going to sort of stretch these out so they're not really bunched on top of one another. In row 2 you're going to need 16 bands, and we're doing an increase in every stitch. So we're just going to do 2 in each. And you'll notice that it's really going to widen this out quite a bit, especially since we started with such a large magic ring. So I have 2 stitches left here. In row 3 you'll need 24 bands, and we're doing an increase in every other stitch. So we're starting in the first stitch with a single, and then the second stitch gets an increase, and then we're just going to continue to repeat that. So again, this is going to widen this out a lot. You're going to really notice. And the body is going to have the same stitch count. So when we get to the end and we're going to attach the two, it's nice that the stitch count is the exact same. So this is the last row of our bottom piece, and then what you're going to do is make a second one of these for the body section because the first 3 rows are the same. Down to my last couple here. So in the second to last stitch we have a single, and then we're ending on that increase. Now we've completed making the bottom, so what you're going to do is pause here and you're going to go back and make a second one of these. So I will have the time to go back to if you feel like you need to follow with the steps again, and that's going to start the body because, as I said earlier, these first 3 rows are identical, and then when you continue playing I'll show you how to finish the body. In row 4 of the body you'll need 24 bands, and it's going to be just 1 single crochet into each stitch, but we are going to start to attach the ears. So the stitches for the ears are 2 through 5 and then 14 through 17. So we're going to start by doing 1 single crochet by itself, and then in the next stitch we're going to start to attach the ear. So I'm going through the stitch on the body, and I'm going to pick up the ear. I'm going to go around in a counterclockwise direction to the next empty stitch, and I'm going to push through that stitch, and then I'm also going to grab this loose band that my clip is on. So I can take that clip off, and what I'm going to do is take my next rubber band, and I'm pulling through the loose band and the stitch on the ear, then the stitch on the body, get the other end back on so I'll have the 3 loops, and one pulls through the other 2. Then I'm going to the next stitch over on the body, and the first open loop here in this clockwise direction is the band that we just attached. So normally I do use that as a stitch, but since the stitch count on the ear is 9, so it's an uneven number, I'm going to actually skip this one. So I'm going to that next stitch over, and then I'll pull through my second band. It goes through the 2 stitches back on, and one through the other 2. Next stitch on the body, next one on the ear. So we're just attaching 4 in this row. And then next one, moving over. So you're going to have 4 empty stitches on the ear that we're going to actually pick up in the next row. So now we're going to do single crochets in between, and there's going to be a total of 8. So let me just count those. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're going to attach the second ear in the same way that we did the first. So I've gone through the stitch on the body. I'm going to go to the outside edge here of the ear in that counterclockwise direction, the first empty stitch, and then the loose band, and I can take off that clip, and then I'm going to pull through the loose band and the stitch on the body, and then through. So next one over. Again, I'm going to skip the one that I just attached, go to the next one in that clockwise direction, pull through. So that was my second. Now I have my third. And then one more. And then that is going to leave me with 7 stitches. So I won't bother to count these out, but it should go right back to where your clip is. So I really don't like attaching body parts separately. That's my least favorite part of doing this. And I did actually try to put the ears on after the body was formed, and I just wasn't happy with the way it was turning out. Whoops, just lost that one. So I decided to just incorporate it into the rows. I do that with a lot of my legs and arms for animals and dogs and things that I make. And I think it worked out much nicer. So here's my last one. And just move that clip. You'll need 24 stitches for row 5, and we're doing 1 single crochet into each stitch. So we are going to attach the ears, and that's going to be in stitches 1 through 4, and also stitches 13 through 16. So I'm going under my first stitch on the head, or the body as I'm calling it, and my first empty stitch on the ear. And just like we did in the previous row, you're just going to pull through both sets of stitches. If I cannot get caught up, there we go. And then one through the other 2. And then you can bend this down if it helps you line up the stitches a little bit better. I'm just going to the next set of stitches over on each piece. And you should definitely have those 4 empty stitches on your ear, and they should be lining up pretty nicely for you. Sometimes you might notice that your stitches are a little bit smaller looking where you attach the ear on the previous row, just because it's being pulled a little bit more. And now I'm to my first stitch that's not part of the ear. So again, we're going to do 8 of these. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to pick up the ear. And again, we have 4 of these. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th one, it might be a little bit hard to see because it's pretty closed off. You want to get under the ear, and that's the 4th. And then we're just going to work our way back, and this time we should have 8 bands. So if you happen to hear any noise in the background, my neighbor is mowing, and also my air conditioner keeps kicking on and off. So it's always some kind of noise going on. Plus with my kids home for the summer, I'm going to be battling trying to drown out little voices as well. So all things that we're going to have to deal with over the next couple months. Here's my last one. In rows 6 through 13, you're going to need 24 bands for each row, and it's going to be 1 single crochet into each stitch. So since it's pretty straightforward, I'm going to go ahead and let you do those rows on your own. So you can pause the video here, and I will see you shortly. The next thing I'm going to do is to add the eyes and the mouth. So I have 2 black bands for the mouth. I have a pink band I'm going to use just to sort of draw this together to make a hint of a nose. And then I have the 6mm black safety eyes. So this is what it looks like when it comes out of the package. You have the black center and then this clear piece that actually is used to hold this in place in the back. So the pupil part, or the black part that Janet used, is larger than mine, and when I pushed mine on, I thought the eyes looked kind of beady or sinister. So what I decided to do was to take some nail polish, and I painted the center blue, and then I outlined it in white. So you can see it's not perfect. I have a couple spots here that kind of came off. I didn't let it dry completely, but that is an alternative that you can do. You can also use bands, you can use wiggle eyes, buttons, so it's really a matter of what you have available. So as far as the placement, I would say maybe about the 5th or 6th row up from the bottom. I'm going to put my first one, and then I'm going to go a couple spaces over and place my second. Now I'm going to take this pink band and I'm going to go on the inside here, and I'm just going to pick up a loop that's right next to where the eye is, and this part is definitely optional. I'm just going to gather these 2 sides together to kind of make the eyes go in a little bit and just give a little bit of definition to the face. And then I'm going to go over to another band on the inside that's right next to the other eye post here. I'm going to pull through both, get the other one back on my hook, pull one through the other, and make that nice and tight. So now if you look on this side, it's just sort of gathered that and makes the eyes set in just a little bit more. So like I said, that is optional. And now for the mouth, it's pretty close to the eyes, so I'm just going to go maybe to this next row down. I'm going to push out, grab one side of the band, pull through, and then I'm just going to push out this next hole over, grab the other side, pull that through. I have the two loops. Take my other band, pull through both, and then I'm going to make a nice and tight slip knot. And then I can do some repositioning of the mouth if I need to. Kind of want her to have sort of like a little bit of a smile. And then if you wanted to secure the eyes in place, you would just have to use 2 additional backs. Next, I'm going to use some polyfill, and I just want to stuff this main body section here. So you will still have some time to add your last bit of stuffing before we totally close off the bottom. Next, I'm going to attach the bottom, and so for that I am using 24 bands. So I'm just going to take the bottom piece and stick it in. So I'm not going to put the 2 starts right next to each other just because I don't want to have to try and contend with both of those at once, both of those loose bands. So I'm going to put them just a little bit away from one another. So I'm going to start on the bottom. I'm going to pick the stitch that's right next to the loose band on the body, and I'm going to push through. Then I'll pick up the loose band. So let me get that on my hook, take off the clip, go to the next stitch over, and push through. Take my first band, pull through everything on my hook. You might have to twist your hook around just to get it to go through smoothly. And then grab the other end, pull one through the other. Then I'm just going to go over to the next stitch on the bottom, and then the next one on the body. Again, pull through both stitches. If you feel like you're getting hung up, if you pull down on the pieces just a little bit as you're pulling through, it's going to help your hook to slide through a bit easier. Again, next one over on each. Now when you get to the stitch right before your loose band, which I think should be the next stitch for me, it might be different for you. It's the first empty stitch in a clockwise direction from where your loose band is. You're going to go through the bottom stitch, get that loose band on your hook, and then go through the next empty stitch on the body. Again, pull through everything on your hook, well, everything but the one at the base. Again, I have to sort of twist this around, and then loom through the other 2. Now, where we had just connected that loose band here, that is going to count as a stitch, the next stitch, because we want to have a stitch count of 24 on each piece. So I'm going to go through that stitch, through the next one on the body, and then just continue around. So basically that's all there is to it. I think the hardest part is just incorporating those loose bands. So we're really getting down to the end here. After we're done stitching this together, the final thing we're going to have to do is just to attach the tentacles. And I see there's a little bit of stuffing in my way. That's the other part that gets a little bit frustrating, is trying to contend with all of these little bits of stuffing. Now, you can also add more stuffing before you totally close this off, if you feel like you need to add a little bit more, which I probably will. Maybe after the next one or two, I'll add my last little bit of stuffing. Sometimes you see me look to the side, because if you're not quite sure if you had gone through a stitch or not, if you look over to the side, it's a little bit easier to see if there's already a band through that stitch or not. So I am going to add just a little bit more stuffing just to fill this out here. And then I'm just going to continue on. And then here's my last one. And then let me just take one additional band and go under a loop at the bottom. Whoops. I'm going to make a nice and tight slip knot. And then I'm just going to reach up from the inside and pull this down so that that loop is hidden. The very last thing we need to do is to attach all of the 8 legs here. So for that I have 24 bands plus one additional to tie it off. So we're going to be doing 3 stitches into each one of the tentacles, because we have a stitch count of 24 and we have 8. So if you do the math, that's 3 bands for each. So I think I'll start on the back side here, and I'm going from the inside pushing out. So I'll kind of start right here in the middle. I'm going to go under the stitch, and let me just grab one of the legs to start. And I'm going to be working in that counterclockwise direction. So I'm going to start on the side where the loose band is. I'm going to put that over towards the right, and then I'm going to go through the stitch right before where the loose band is. Now we have a stitch count of 9 and we're only attaching 3 bands through each, so you're not going to be going through every single stitch. So I'm going to start, if you look here where this loose band is, I'm actually going to go like 2 before. Push through that, pick up the loose band in the middle, and then come across. So like I said, you're going to have some extra stitches to play around with. I'm going to pull through the loose band and the 2 stitches, and I'm actually going to pull through this body stitch too here just to start. We have just the 2 loops on our hook, one through the other. So then I'm going to the next stitch over on the body, and same thing, I'm going to go in the next empty stitch on the leg and push straight across. Now this time I'm going through, I actually have 3 sets of stitches, 2 for the leg and 1 for the body. I still have that 1 at the base of my hook, so now I have 3 loops, 1 through the other 2. Next stitch over on the body, and now you should still have a couple stitches left. I think with mine here it looks like I have 3, so I'm just going to go on the 1, push straight across, and it's not an exact science. As long as you're getting through 3 of the sets of stitches that are pretty much in the middle, it should work out just fine. So pull through all the sets of stitches and through. So now if you look here, you can see how this is attached. And then in our next stitch over, we're going to start to pick up our very next leg. So let me just grab this. Same thing, I want the loose band to be over towards the right. And I'm going to go, not in this first one that the band is coming up through, but the next one over. Then the loose band. And then across to the other side. Pull through. You can see me wiggling my hook back and forth, just trying not to get caught there. Next one, the side that's closest to the body of the leg, and then it looks like this next one here. So definitely you're just going to be using your best judgment on which stitches of the leg to push through. Next one. So that's my 3 for that one. Again, clip over to the right. Get this loose one in the middle. Whoops, I think I'm a little bit far over. I think I want to start right here. There we go. Take out the clip, move across. So there's one. Two. And here's 3. And then this next one on the body. So it's important that you're not skipping any of the stitches on the body, but as I already said a couple times, the legs, you are going to be skipping some. So there's one set. 2, and 3. So now you can see we have half of this done. So I think what I'm going to let you do is just go ahead and do the next ones on your own. I will come back with you on the last one just to show you how to close that off. Now I'm down to my very last stitch here. I have 2 bands left. So the first one is going to push through and it's going to go through the leg. And then with my very last band, I'm just going to go back to the start of just the body section, pull through everything, one through the other, make that nice and tight, and then I'm just going to reach up through from the inside and get that loop to go down inside. Try not to pull out any stuffing. And then my sweet little pearl is complete. So if you wanted to, you could have all of the legs laid straight out. They kind of go together just a little bit, but it's easy to just kind of separate them so that they lay out nice and flat. Or if you wanted to, you could push them all down like so, and then I know you have the top angle here, but she could stand up. So I think she turns out super adorable, and I want to thank Janet for this really awesome pattern, and I'm so glad that she shared it with me so I could share it with all of you. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that way you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to post your pictures and your comments there too, and you can subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!